Hey everybody, welcome back to Champ Sons and our NCAA or College Football 25 Dynasty here as we are with the Mean Green, finished up season number 2 with a big time Military Bowl victory over Virginia Tech. And right now just looking at some of the other opportunities available out there. And really there's nothing. I don't want to go become an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator. I really don't. We just completed our second season with the Mean Green. We had a 9-5 year. Started out slow, finished strong, and that was a big point for us. Now, in part of some of the problems we ran into this season, it had to do with our defensive coordinator. So we did fire him before the bowl game, and now we are looking for another one. Need to find someone to fit that role for us to come in and really help us out. And Ben Whitehart does run a 4-2-5 defensive scheme. He is someone that we are looking for. And his coach grade is a C. So we do decide to offer him if he does decide to join us. That'll kind of help us out and propel us into the next season. I think on the defensive side should really be a positive thing for us. Looking at our coach capabilities, we do have 30 points to spend. Recruiter, we've got most of these pulled up. I haven't really touched the kicker portion yet, just because I think I need to get all these other sections filled in first. So I do add in the fourth one for wide receiver and add in some running back. We also have offensive line and linebacker that needs to be taken care of. So we do get offensive line to be 3 out of 4. And with 10 points left, I don't want to just spend all of it in recruiter just yet. Right, I think we've got enough to really help us kind of get going to where we have enough points and can really give us a jump in the recruiting battle. I don't go with motivator mainly because looking at it, we don't have enough guys that are going to graduate are going to be drafted early on to truly give us that initial boost. So we had to I do move down to tactician and start making some changes there. The defensive backfield is a big thing. The passing game, we get torched quite a bit, so I do upgrade the tactician thing for the defensive backs, which really helped us out in that realm. Now, looking at the recruiting, I'm not able to do any additional recruiting right now, but seeing who we do have, we got about 10 guys. All of them pretty much 3-star. We do have one 4-star, Mr. Hogue, that did decide to come to us, but we are recruiting multiple other 4-star athletes that if we can get some of these guys, it's really going to kind of help build our school up. So we are going to have to go ahead and advance up, but we have put in a lot of points into these guys. And with that being said, Mr. Rob Costello, 4-star tight end, does commit over to us here at the Mean Green. Now, after looking at the bowl season, the college football playoff, how it all shaped out this year, Georgia are your national champions once again. Guess can't be too shocked by that. It is what it is. So after that, coming into the major recruiting periods, we look at free safety. Daniel Navarre does commit over to us, and that takes us into the offseason recruiting. He's the only one who came in who committed prior to the actual offseason recruiting period. So we do obviously need to look at the portal, right? And having deal breakers is going to be one of the primary things for us, I think, kind of going forward. It's our biggest way to make or to get guys to join us. So we have these 2 4-stars, Cade McConnell, Jake Taylor, both offensive linemen. But we have a deal breaker for them, and that's the biggest thing. Normally, I don't think we'd really have a shot at many of these 4-star guys. But with the deal breaker, I think it kind of works out for us, right? Now, we've got 750, technically, hours to use. And I hate how they take away what you've already put into these guys. So now, I mean, I get it. We have to go ahead and schedule their visits and all that fun jazz. I truly understand that. But I don't like having to re-put in all these points for them. I think we put in all the effort during the season. They should still maintain their whatever they left with and not impact our new hours. But that's just me. So Mr. Felix Gray, a 4-star defensive tackle, someone that we've had our eye on for a while. We do go ahead and schedule his visit. And we are going to put on a hard sell. And if you look at prestigious, it actually matched up with 3 of his needs just about perfectly. So we do the hard sell plus contact the family members, which I think really works out. It's got a pretty decent value as far as recruiting points or recruiting of a lift. So I think it does really work out for us. Now, Cade McConnell, immediately, we're already in his top 5, ready for a visit here coming into week number 1. We're number 3 on his board. Downside is we got some big schools that we got to try to compete with. But I don't see that they've offered him a scholarship yet. So fingers crossed they don't offer him a scholarship until like week 3 or something, and we get him first, and he comes to us prior to that. Jake Taylor being the other offensive lineman we are looking at. Another 4-star. He is a right tackle. He's someone that I think we really could use. Pass block finesse being 88, run block, or pass block finesse 87, run block finesse 88. This is a kid who can really seal up that right side of the offensive line for us and really protect Wilkes kind of going forward, because he did have a really good freshman year. And, we struggled at points, but he bounced back. And so even with some quarterbacks that we could bring in, I don't see there being much of a challenge for that starting quarterback spot. So we need him to seal up our line. We really definitely do. And one problem is I don't know what it is he truly values. So I can pick ones that have the highest rating when it comes to, the hard sell, which is what I go with. Just because on average those hit the higher the ratings that we had, which in a hard sell you think it's gotta bring something to you, right? It just kind of does. Now then, Brahim Long, 4-star defensive back. We are 4th, but look at who we're competing with. Tennessee's all the way his number 1 interest, so we got to try to overcome him. But once again, Tennessee has not offered him a scholarship, so we are. And then on his visit, we find the one that matches with an A+ rating, so that's what we go with. And that's really kind of our biggest thing whenever we don't know what they value the most. We pick the highest rated stuff, and that's kind of how we hammer it home. Now, we're cutting through our 750 hours pretty quickly. I understand that, but just got to figure the more guys that we can get signed early, the more points we'll have available going into the next week is all I'm saying. So now Morgan Higbee, a tight end. He's more of a blocker. He's not the greatest of talent that we would have, I think, even in the tight end room. But being a blocking tight end when it comes to run plays, one thing we did always kind of struggle with was around the goal line. If we could have him fit into one of those spots, it would really kind of help us out in the long run. Bradley Kashama, a halfback, receiving back. We do use our running backs in receiving roles quite a bit, so he'd be a pretty good fit. We've been trying to get him for a while. We are first in his interest. We just really need to give him that extra push to get him to commit. Now that used up most of our points. And let's see, we got Felix Gray committing here to the Mean Green. And that's going to be it for the first week. Felix Gray is the first and only commit we get after week 1. So here we are in week 2 looking at Kashama. He hasn't pulled the trigger yet. I think he's ready. He just hasn't done it. Now we have moved up to the top of the board on a lot of these guys. All right, Cade McConnell's one of them. We moved up to the top over, was that Arkansas, I believe, was one of his other top choices. And so being first, it does help, especially when you're competing against teams like in Arkansas, Tennessee, teams out of the SEC, and you're in the American. And it does make things kind of tough. I get it. But it's one of those things that I think if we do everything the right way, it'll really help us out here. Now, Brahim Long, we are going to pull off a hard sell. Being number 1, I need to try to get him, I think, even more interested. So here, it's game time as a hard sell. I don't know if one of those matches his values. However, it is one of our highest rated segments, so we do select it. And like I said, that's kind of how we operate around here in some of these. Xavier Atkins, right outside linebacker. He's finally ready to schedule a visit. So we are going to go ahead and get that set up. Now, we have 365 hours here for week 2. Right? And as much as I like the transfer portal, we got to be careful with it. Now, Lamont Nene. Mr. Nene. Okay. He originally was on our recruiting interest, but we didn't really match his. And so we kind of bailed on him. Now, looking at what's happened since then, Arkansas didn't offer him, which is kind of weird because originally that's why we bailed on him, is because he was going to go to Arkansas. But apparently they didn't want to offer him, or he decided to reject their offer. They just rescinded it temporarily. Who knows what they did. However, we did go ahead and reoffer him. We're putting on a hard sell. We found one, Mr. Aspirational, that matches all of his values that we know of. So we do put on the hard sell. And I will go ahead and contact him just to add that little personal touch to the recruitment of him. So we go back. Now we're looking at, and some of these guys, when you go to the transfer list or prospect list, these are transfer guys. They're classified as in the transfer portal, but you will also find them here in the prospect list. You just got to look at it. Drayvon Wilson, a defensive back, a 3-star. We have a deal breaker on him, being playing style. We have an A+ rating. He's at a B-. So his requirement was a B-. So I go in and add him in. I want to see if he's got the capability of 90 speed, 80 man coverage, 99 change of direction, and 79 play recognition. That's a big thing for us, especially being so young. Having that kind of play recognition rating, and I think it's something that we can really capitalize on and develop. So while maybe this first season he's not that star defensive back, give him about 2 years, some experience playing, because we are going to have to play a lot of 4 defensive back setups. He's someone who can really not only just earn a spot, but also develop very nicely, right? Now, I think it's funny, conference prestige or conference spotlight was his selling point, even though we're in the American Conference. The values added up, and really coming off a conference championship does work in our favor. I've noticed that, but it's just one of those things that we got to kind of keep a watch on, and it does catch us off guard every now and then. So coming back here at the transfer list, there's Mr. Jake Taylor. We're still waiting on him. We are first in his board. Wilson has us listed as 4th, but that's, of course, because we just added him in. Now, Malachi Carney, right tackle. Him, I'd look to add just permanently for depth. I don't think he's going to take away from much people, but if we can get him in for depth, that'd be good. Now, Nasir Atkins, he's going to be another transfer kind of freshman. Someone that we could bring in, 76 power move, 74 tackle, be it a right end. Got a lot of potential there, but we are going to have to compete with Texas. And not knowing what we value, we need to put the hard sell on him, get him probably really interested in us, so that way he can, we can move up on his interest, and hopefully Texas kind of recruits too many guys and he falls off their wayside. So that's kind of a hope with Atkins on that one. Now, Morgan Higbee, after week number 2, does commit, a 3-star tight end. And then Jake Taylor, a 4-star right tackle, someone we really wanted and needed and battled for, does commit over to us. Same thing with Mr. Brahim Long Jr., 4-star defensive back. He's someone who's really going to help us out, I think. Maybe initially, definitely to start, but Xavier Atkins locked us out. You in great. I get it. Now, Nasir Atkins, we jumped over Texas with the hard sell. So we do decide to schedule him for a visit. Playing style is what we add in. And I was shocked that we got over Texas on that one. I really was. Nene moved us into first as well. Or Nani. Nene. I'm calling him Nene. I think the name Nani just is a little goofy in my reality. And then Kashama still won't commit. We're right there. He's almost all the way. His bar is almost all the way full. So we're right there in that spot. Now, I do go back and separate everything out in terms of transfer portal. I just want to see if there is even anybody else out there. Once you get into week 3, like we're in, a lot of the top profile guys aren't going to be on there. You do run into a lot more 3-star athletes. Kyrie Moyston, a left end. We do need guys on the defensive end. He's a junior transfer. He's someone that does have potential for us. We need to fill this defensive line. And if we can solidify our defense, the way our offense is going to be playing kind of moving forward, I think we set ourselves up really good for some good solid seasons coming up here. And if you look at him, 88 power moves, 84 strength, 80 tackling, 89 awareness. This kid's got everything you could want. He's got 79 pursuit being a defensive end. All right, that's about as good as you can ask for. Now, we schedule him for a visit, and we do playing style. 1, that is our deal breaker. 2, it's one of our highest rated segments for him, being on the defensive side, so it kind of works out for us. Now, we go with a hard sell. Once again, I don't know what he values all that much. I just know what our ratings are. So it's just trying to find that balance between this hits up all our higher points consecutively at one time versus us having to deal with some other ones. So it's game time. We got 2 ratings in the A, Coach Prestige in the B. It's about as good as we can get to try to bring Moisten in. And really, I like the fact that we replenish some hours every week. I wish it was like that during the season. So even during the season, I get you have all these guys on your recruiting board. You're putting in all these hours into them. I think every week it should at least kind of add a little bit more back in, regenerate some points, even though you're still doing all this recruiting for these athletes. But that's just my own personal opinion on the matter. No one listens to me in that realm either, so it is what it is. Now, Tavoris Jones, another halfback, a junior transfer out from El Paso. He's not going to UT El Paso. His hometown is El Paso, Texas, so hopefully we can kind of use that to our advantage. But he's got a 92 speed. And I think building up the depth of this backfield is something that's going to be really important for us to do kind of moving forward. The one downside to him is while we're in the top 8, we're not in his top 5, so we can't schedule him for a visit yet. Or not quite there yet. But I think within the next week we can try to get him in to that final week of recruiting and get a visit in on him. So here we are just scrolling through some more of these guys. And there you see Moisten transferring from Cincinnati, Atkins transferring from UTEP. And then Curly Thomas IV, a transfer out of California, 3-star. We are number 3 on his interest rating. Deal breaker, playing style being A+, needs a B-. So that's got a lot of potential, these guys. And if we can really take advantage of that, it kind of seems like kind of cheesing the recruit and stuff, but I get it. Look at that, 95 finesse moves for a defensive tackle. He's got a 95 on the finesse move segment, 83 on strength, 83 on pursuit, 79 speed. 81 tackle. This kid's got everything you could want out of a defensive tackle for us. He's a transfer. He is a junior, though, so we're not going to have him for all that long. So if we can get him out there on the field and really kind of get things going for him, that would actually work out all that much better for us. Now, we are in the top 3 for him, so we're going to go ahead and put on a little bit of a hard sell once again. Haven't recruited him that much, so we're going to take a guess based off our ratings what truly works out. And here we go once again. The It's Game Time experience hits up all the things that we really do well as a team. And so that takes us in, and Bradley Kashama finally commits. We knew we were right there for him. We had him on the hook, just couldn't reel him in. And Lamont Nene, 2 4-star halfbacks coming to Denton. Nasir Atkins out of McAllen, he commits as well. So picked up 3 good players right there, and we're looking at about, let's get rid of Mr. Wilson going to TCU, Ingrate. Curly going to Tech. I hope you enjoy that dust storms of Lubbock, you Ingrate. We got around, I think, 18 total actual recruits, 17 that have signed with us, so we're still doing some recruiting. And it's just trying to find some guys that at this stage, I'm not even going to look directly from the transfer portal. I'm going to try to stick mainly to the regular one. We did see Bryce Radford. He's a center, and really he's one of these depth guys that we need. Run block being 80, pass block power 81, awareness 79. He's got a lot of capability, but he is just a 3-star. Not that really means all that much, just outside of his initial starting rating for us. And he's a junior transfer, so I really just want to bring him in as far as depth is needed. I'm not sure how much playing time he's really going to see, but it is what it is, and we'll deal with that as we go. Now, Tavoris Jones, ready for a visit. He's another halfback. We've already got 2 4-star halfbacks. If we can add in a third, this will be the recruiting group of halfbacks that I think will really kind of stabilize our running back field for about 3 to 4 seasons. Really keep us with a good stable of backs that we can just kind of float in and out. All of them got different little attributes that work out, whether they're receiving backs or whether they're not. Now, Jamison Cloud, a transfer sophomore, free safety. We don't really need a free safety, but he is still one of the higher rated ones. Plus, I have 505 hours. Who would I be to not recruit one of the higher rated guys? You know what I mean? Ashton Williams, he's still available coming out of Tulsa. I don't really care what team you are whenever you decide to transfer, but I just don't want a Tulsa Golden Hurricane all that much. If I can avoid it, I will. Dexter Farrell, he has signed with us. So, I mean, it's good to see him there. For some reason, it's not lit up green. Maybe just because he hasn't actually committed yet, I guess. Not sure what that's all about. But we will have to kind of see why it says they're signed but not committed. It kind of hurts my feelers that we'd be in such a realm for him. We saw Ashton Williams earlier. He's not free safety. Is not what we need. I think we got plenty of depth there. And in reality, even with strong safety, these guys can be kind of interchangeable. So I'm not going to stress about trying to fill those needs in. I do want to look at the wide receivers. Mainly just because it's nice to have a really good defense, but if you can't push the ball down the field as an offense, you're going to run into problems. And with having Wilkes as our quarterback, we've got potential to push the ball down. He's got like 92 or 94 arm strength. So we can spread that ball out and around. We just need guys who are going to be able to come up and make those big-time catches. Now, Mr. LeBeau, Brian LeBeau, he did sign with us. He's a 3-star receiver. He's going to be one of those guys. But there's still some more depth that I think we truly need to try to build out in that wide receiver back room to make our school pretty feasible to compete for the next couple years. Now, looking at some of these guys that we've added, we're going to go and scout them real quick. Like I said, 500 hours. Jamison Cloud, he is a free safety. I want him to be interchangeable with their strong safety. That's the reason why we did add him onto the board. Now we're competing with some Big 12 schools there to see about trying to get him. So if we can actually snag him from a Big 12 school, that'll make us look all that much better. I do think about going with the sway technique, but me personally, I'm just going to give him a hard sell. And if he doesn't want to come at that point, then he doesn't want to come to our school. Like if it doesn't increase our interest where, we get shot up above, then it is what it is. I can't blame the kid for wanting to go to Oklahoma State over North Texas when it comes to a lot of the ratings. However, we are an up and coming team. I don't care that we went 9-5 in year 2. Not the point. We won the conference. We beat a top 15 Virginia Tech team in the Military Bowl. We are poising ourselves for greatness over the next few seasons. And if you don't want to be a part of that, I'm not going to sit there and beg you. Now, Lorenzel DeBose, defensive back, man-to-man, someone that I think we really kind of need. We've got a lot of zone guys, but we got to start playing man-to-man at some point. We just really do. Rico Costello was one of the wide receivers we went after. He's a JUCO sophomore transfer. Tendency, it says, as a route runner. I think we can get him if we just kind of do what you see us doing, the hard sell, the DM player, and then social media look, just with the number of points that we get because we're coming in here to the very back end of the recruiting period of the offseason recruiting. And I think he's someone who's going to add depth. He's not going to be a superstar, all right? Is this kid a Landon Signs? No. A Dalton Carlton? No. A Damon Ward? No. But he's someone who can be solid. He can be a solid, decent player that really fits into our scheme. So looking on the defensive side some more, we have middle linebackers, right? George Martino, Nico Anelli. These are guys that we have already recruited, and they've got definite potential. I think our linebacker core is actually pretty solid at this point. I do start looking at the defensive tackle area because the way going with a 4-2-5 as our defensive side, we need some of these guys to be able to rotate in and out. Now, Gadosh and Felix, both of them being 4 stars. And looking at 3 stars, probably not going to get all that much interest in or time seeing the field. They're going to be more of that reliever kind of role, the filter in and out throughout the game kind of role. But depth is what you need in case somebody gets hurt. It just is. So we need to have guys in place ready to go for if that happens. Now coming into after week number 4, Kyrie Moiston, our left end, he out of Cincinnati, he does commit. Tavoris Jones commits as well. Another halfback in our room. Bryce Radford building up some offensive line, kind of continuity there. Lorenzel DeBose, he decides to commit over to us as well. So picked up a lot of good guys right there at the very end. It was good to see them commit over and get us joined up and have a pretty decent class coming into this next season, being more in the mid-30s than all the way down in like the 60s. You know what I'm saying? So, taking a look at our roster and kind of seeing some improvements some guys have made. Landon Sides, he's an 86 overall. Oddly enough, no real improvement by him. That is what it is. I don't know how they set that up this season with their upgrades and all that in between the season. I don't know how they really set that up. I've seen a lot of inconsistency. Some guys have increased quite a bit. Other guys not so much. Now you'll see if you look at by our name, we are now a 2.5 star team instead of just like a 2-star team. So we've got some improvement going on, and we're doing pretty decent. And looking at our offensive line, we still run into some issues, but I think through development, these guys are going to be a little bit better. There's still going to be a problem for us. There's still going to be a problem, but it's going to have us in a spot where I think we can build with them. You know what I'm saying? We don't have a lot of guys over the 80 mark, but some of them that we do are in solid positions for us. Coming into the defensive backfield, that's where we're going to see most of it for the first time. We have like 4 or 5 defensive backs over the rating of 80. Taylor Starling is going to be our number one, 96 speed. He's going to be able to compete and run down receivers, which is good to see. Javian Anderson, tackling, safety, something that we really have to have. We kind of filter in and out with Tuck, which becomes a little bit of a problem before. Now, in the kicker realm, Naguma, 85 power, 84 accuracy. And I can't tell you how good it is to have a kicker that can actually have some accuracy. It makes my life a whole lot easier. So now we're going to look at our schedule. Okay? And we're going to be playing 8 games in the conference, in the American Conference, right? So that leaves 4 non-conference games. And then how do we want to settle these things out? That's always going to be a question. Northwestern, we did have first on the board. And in reality, I don't want to get started out with Northwestern. I think coming off after last season, the way it was a trudge in the opening part, that really put us behind the gun on a lot of things. It's one of these, I don't want to go completely don't want to go up against the cupcake. But at the same time, I understand how we might have to. And so I do try to avoid that at all possible. And I originally scheduled Texas on starting out on the road. But I also need to see how many home games we are actually going to have versus how many away games. And is Texas a team we truly want to start out with this season? I don't really know. I don't think that they're going to be the ones that I want us to take on to start. It's one of those. You got to be careful with this schedule because it's not like in NCAA 14 where you'd look and say your strength of schedule, which would play a role. Man, I don't even think strength of schedule really does play a role in this game. In reality, you could probably schedule 4 FCS teams, kick the living crap out of them, and that would set you up perfectly. Me, personally, I just don't like to do that. So initially, I start us out on the road against Texas, then comes UNLV, and then I do put Northwestern coming to Denton. That is a game I do think normally Big Ten's not going to travel to an American Conference team, but I truly do believe that in this instance, Northwestern is likely to come to North Texas. Now, looking at week number 4, I want to try to get some Power 5 teams in. That's always been my biggest thing. Let's get some Power 5 teams in here. SMU, they are the ones. They are a rival of ours. They are a team that I think we really should probably look to try to schedule just about every year if we can. So I do add them in on the road at SMU. Last season they came into Denton and kicked the crap out of us. Right? I think it's time to return the favor, if you know what I mean. So rethinking our schedule, seeing Texas number 1. We're going ahead and change that over to the FCS East Astronauts, Mr. Rocket City University, that we are going to host for them. Now, if you look at how many games away versus home, this is kind of why I'm starting to change that schedule around. Because we have a lot more games on the road than we do at home. So starting out, looking at trying to do 3 or 4 games at home, 3 out of the first 4 being at home, kind of makes more sense. We might end up just doing the 2 out of 4. And it really does kind of depend on who we end up stacking into our schedule. That's just kind of the biggest thing here. And like I said, I don't want it to be too easy because we do have to test our team out. But at the same point, after the way last year worked, that last season, the start kicked our butt big time. Right, starting out 1-3. That was pretty rough. So I do keep Texas added in. So we are going to be at home against the FCS, and then on the road at Texas, just because Texas is never going to go play in Denton. I don't care what our record is. And Texas is not the same team that they were before. All right, last season they were 4-8, so they're not that same team they were before. And I think this year they're going to be a pretty good measuring stick for us to see where we are at in our team's development. If we can actually put a win in Austin, man, that's something that's going to set us up for those future moves. Now that we got our season done, let's take a look at what we have going on in recruiting and what I like to see 625 hours here in preseason recruiting to get our board built up. And like I said, when it comes to recruiting, there, especially the offseason stuff, there's a couple different ways to look at it. Right? Do we want to go through and let's just add in a bunch of guys, just hammer them all home. And then once we get all these guys added in, keep our fingers crossed that maybe one of them joins us early on and we keep having hours available for recruiting later on? Or do we, sparse it out, be a little bit more tactful with our recruiting? I don't really know. It's an interesting thing to look at. So I think it's funny. Whenever we go, you separate out positions, they have them by need. If they're labeled as an athlete, they don't mark it as a need. Mr. Chiquillo is going to be a quarterback, or at least that's where he fits best, according to the game, as an athlete. But he's not. He's listed in the quarterback section, and we need quarterback depth. However, they don't put down that you need the athlete. So it is what it is. Kevin Vega, 2-star. I did just add him in just for the simple fact of needing depth. He's one of those guys that, oh my God, every other quarterback we have has gotten hurt, and so has our punter. Let's put in Vega, let him kind of throw the ball. His throwing bounds are only 84, so he's got about a 6-yard throw on him, distance-wise at max, So it is what it is. I like how they say you need 13 receivers. I mean, we're losing 3 after this year because they're going to be seniors. We have a total of 12, and it says you need 1. I don't get that, really. I don't truly know how their needs work out. I think we're pretty well in line, but it is something to keep in mind. So we are going to check him out. Jamie Bravo, you got to go with the guy who has the last name Bravo. You just kind of do. Keontae Zuber. His name is Keontae. We are going to recruit him. So Mr. Bravo, Mr. Zuber, we do add them onto our board. We are going to take a look at their scouting. And I do this always. You don't have to, especially in the initial phases. If you just want to add a bunch of guys in and, hit scholarship offer, Maybe you get them, maybe you don't. But I do go ahead and I do like to take a look. You're not going to learn too much from them, but the more scouting you can have, the more you can figure out about them. Keontae Zuber, he's definitely not the greatest. He's only got 89 speed. He does have 81 catching traffic, though. So he's got decent. He may be a semi-nice slot guy, or even in reality, someone with his speed, you might be able to move him over to tight end. Look at position changes on some of these guys. It's worth a look. You can find some real talent that can be moved over to a different position from what they start out as. Now, needing offensive linemen, because for the love of God, we always need offensive linemen. Connor Jorgensen, left tackle out of Arkansas. Like I said, deal breakers, that's what we have to have for these big guys. I say big guys, I mean 4-star and above. If you don't have a deal breaker, odds are they're not even going to care about you. And the fact he's a gym bust, which doesn't really mean much in this game, I don't think. The fact he's a bust kind of actually helps out to our advantage. Because all those schools that haven't offered him a scholarship when they realize he's a bust probably aren't going to. So that's a positive thing for us. And we continue to look in the offensive line, continue to try to get stuff built up here. I'm looking at right tackles only because we had a couple guys that fit in the left tackle realm. So let's take a look at right tackles. Mr. Tony Laguda, I don't know why it has him as green but not the others. Probably just from the rating of interest, I would imagine, or maybe deal breaker. But I kind of going on scroll right past him. Mr. Hardman, we do add him to the board. And this is a hard part because I want to just kind of grab up some of these guys. Like I go back and add Laguda. I'm not sure why. He's got decent blocking though. Pass block finesse is at a 79. But when you're adding depth, I just don't really feel all that into, recruiting these guys. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. If you're just bringing a guy in to not play, maybe not play, he might get a chance if somebody gets hurt, if things work out for him. But it's one of those things. I just not really into caring too much about those guys. If we can get them, great. If not, who cares? Linebackers, I do care about. Let me just state that very clearly. I do care about our outside linebackers and our middle linebackers. Now, finding guys that are 4-star in that realm, those guys can be game changers. Whether you bring them rushing off the edge, they have to drop back into pass coverage. Like Forney is a gem. 77 zone coverage for an outside linebacker. The kid's got capability. We're number 2 on his interest rate, and same thing, Cliff Copper. We are number 3 on his interest. Both of these guys are on opposite sides, so there's no way that they're going to interact with each other as far as playing time. I think that really does work out, as they are some of the last recruits that we actually do add in to our recruiting board. Now, we're taking a look at our depth chart right now. Wilkes, obviously, is going to be the starter. Now, we got Walford and McCollum as backups. It's kind of tough to determine who we really want there, Zach Evans is going to be our starting running back. He's a senior. There's Jones coming in off the transfer. He will be more of our kind of power back setup. He's got a lot of attributes that rate higher than Evans, but it's a pretty fair mix, and I think Evans kind of wins out on that. Looking at the receiving room, I've got a lot of really young receivers, and I'm happy with that. I truly am. There's some guys like Brian LeBeau. I mean, we have to get developed. That's the one downside of them always being so young, is we have to get them developed. Now, John Vega, Smith, Ferguson. What's funny is all these guys are in their mid-70s, but they're all the way down there near the bottom. And in our receiving room, it's good that we have this kind of problem. But at the same time, some of these guys, you want to try to find a spot for them if you can. But I like that we have a lot of guys that are down there on the bench that are in the mid-70s, right below our starters. So that way, if someone does drop out, everybody can kind of seamlessly fit in, if something happens by injury or what have you. Jake Taylor, our right tackle. Well, actually, he's starting at left tackle for us. He came in as a right tackle, but we moved him over to the left tackle, and I think that's a great move for us to really help us out there. Mercer, our center, he's a sophomore. He's still young. What's amazing is he beat out Radford. I would have thought Radford would have come up to snag him, but no, Mercer beat him out. He's a youngster. He still has some issues when it comes to blocking, but he'll develop pretty quickly, I have a feeling. Then Magia, our starting right guard, has played well for us, and I think he's going to continue kind of to play pretty decently coming off that right side. I don't want to depend on him on the left side, because I don't think he'll do all that well from there. But the right side, solid, good to go. So that is kind of where we put him at. I start looking at seeing where some of these guys are placed to really help us out. If people do get injured, what's going to happen for us there? Like Adam Roche, he's a 77. He's originally a left guard, but we have him over a right guard, and I just want to see how they decide these fit schemes. Is the biggest thing. So looking at left tackle, Jake Taylor, he's a natural right tackle. We moved him over to left tackle. And what's funny is our left tackle, we put him at right tackle. Mainly because Garola is a 78 overall right tackle, but he's an even worse left tackle. While Jake Taylor is a really good right tackle, but it makes for a pretty damn good left tackle as well. So it's kind of weird how that shapes out some of these times with this depth chart, but hey, it is what it is. I ain't going to battle it too much. I try to. I just don't like to, you know what I'm saying? And in that instance, Boyston I do put up because he's actually rated right there alongside Langley. Langley is younger than Moyston, but it's one of those things I still think. I would prefer, if we can, let's keep all left ends on the left end, and then the right ends, we'll keep all of them on the right side. Now, it's funny, Moyston is our starting right end. His left to right end rating's pretty much the same. So to have him starting out on one side versus the other it's still kind of funny to me to look at. And it's funny, Keith Smith, he'd be higher rated than Moyston is. He's a defensive tackle. If you saw right down below there on the right end, Keith Smith is a 79 overall. Moisten is a 70. It's one of these weird, wonky things. Okay, I can put in a defensive end there that's rated 78, or I could try to put a defensive tackle in there that's rated 79. However, Keith Smith is also our starting defensive tackle, so I guess that's why he's not in there in that spot. And looking at all the improvements we've seen on the defensive line, all those up arrows going up for change of direction overall. Not a whole lot of other fields being upgraded, but it is what it is, and it works out pretty decently. So I'm glad to see freshmen are adding to the depth. Now, I'm not going to redshirt a lot of those guys. We need them. That is going to be the biggest thing, is we need some of those guys. Now, I hate seeing that right there. Homewood did so well for us last season that basically the way the depth chart has rated out, he's kind of left behind in a more of a backup role. I mean, he'll get his shot. Don't get me wrong. He's only a sophomore. But, man, it does hurt seeing a kid who played that well for you the year before as a starter coming off those ends. Really, really kind of, I wouldn't say taking a step back, but you see he didn't improve much. He stayed at 77. It is what it is. Eddie Callaway, our senior on that front seven, linebacker, middle linebacker. The kid's got capability. He can cover. He can tackle. He can read. He's got good play recognition. He's everything that we definitely want to see coming out from the middle linebacker spot. Now, looking at the outside linebacker, I really want Homewood to start. But it's really hard trying to find a spot. And I know on the left linebacker spot, they had him at 77 versus Woodyard, who's at an 82. And on the right outside linebacker spot, you have Weslowski, who was starting there. But I would just find these moments difficult trying to get this shit organized the way I think it really should be. The simple fact that Miller, a left end, is not going to be higher up on the linebacker depth chart than a guy named linebacker. That's just not how it's going to happen. So I have to do some finagling here to get the proper guys in the position they need to be in. That's why Woodyard, we do put him at starting left outside linebacker. He's an 82 overall. It really does help us out there. Weslowski's an 81 right outside linebacker. He is a senior. All right, so he's got a lot. So wherever Homewood has some deficiencies, he really makes up for that being a senior. So that's why I do keep him in. Looking at the defensive backfield, Taylor Starling is going to be our number one defensive back. 97 speed, 96 acceleration, 99 change of direction, 81 awareness, 89 overall. I'm glad to see all of our starting defensive backs at over an 80. That's just a positive sight to have going into this next season. Javen Anderson, he's going to be a tough SOB, I think, in that defensive backfield. He's going to be getting ready to make some big old hits coming up in this next season. 84 overall. He's poised. Now, Dante Goodson, he's a 77. He is better than Tuck, but they're going to both see fairly plenty playing time. I promise y'all that. So that was our roster as we come in to get set up for the next season, which we will begin in that next episode, kicking off against FCS East, and then we'll travel down to Austin and so forth. It's going to be a great season, number 3. We're poised, set, ready to do something here in that year. So definitely join us for that one. Hit the subscribe button if you have not hit it already. And definitely give us a thumbs up if you're excited the college football season has finally kicked off and that we are underway in the real world. And I will see y'all next episode as Season 3 gets started. But until then, everybody stay safe. And, well, y'all know how it goes from here, right? Later, y'all.